obviously about to talk about the Will Smith movie Hancock, and
guys, we're reliving our childhood, okay? Ecto Cooler is back in the stores, and I ordered 3 crates of it.
And I definitely remember back in 5th grade probably getting these in my lunch, pouring half of it out, filling it up with vodka, going to school, having a great time.
Lady Ghostbusters!
Gender bent Ghostbusters movie. And I will say, I'm an old guy. I was a kid. I was the perfect age when the original Ghostbusters came out, so I definitely grew up with that movie and its sequel, which is, kind of an afterthought really, with as great as the first movie was. And I've been waiting around for decades hoping for more Ghostbusters, not just the amazing video game that came out, but an actual...
Which is, really the official third Ghostbusters.
Yeah, Ghostbusters 3 is that video game, because it was, written by them, it's voiced by all of the main actors.
So great.
So this, to me, is the 4th installment. And I was completely trepidatious about the fact that they were rebooting the whole series. Like, you want to have new actors in it? That's fine. Let's build on what we've established. And the first trailers came out, and I did not like it. I was not sold on it. I wanted it to be good so bad.
Oh, I was so excited from the start. But I didn't, I grew up with Ghostbusters as a huge part of my life and my childhood. Not in a way that it was with you, because obviously it's, 10 years later, that I was suddenly getting into Ghostbusters and it wasn't as big of a thing. So to me, the idea, I liked seeing women as Ghostbusters. I got really tired. I grew up with the real Ghostbusters cartoon, and Janine gets to bust ghosts in that, and she's cool and fun. Yeah. But that's it.
I didn't care one way or the other about the fact that they were changing the genders. Okay, sure, why not?
Do something different.
Yeah, it didn't matter to me whatsoever. However, I will say that it wasn't as if the original Ghostbusters was a misogynistic.
No. Well, maybe a little bit of Venkman.
He was a womanizer, but he was also put in his place by Sigourney Weaver all the time. So
you can't have Sigourney Weaver not put men in
he could be begging all he wants, and the only other female we really get to know is Annie Potts' character, and she's just geektastic with Harold Ramis. So it was actually all right, I mean, Dan Aykroyd gets some ghost head in the original one, but that's about all the female interaction we get.
I love 80s kids movies, man.
Yeah.
Shit was real.
No, everybody's smoking.
Yeah.
You can swear, and it's still PG.
Yeah.
The all-star cast.
Oh, yeah.
From the previous, from the original one. Obviously, we know Kristen Wiig, we know Melissa McCarthy, but we kind of don't know nearly as well Leslie Jones.
Leslie Jones and Holtzman, who's
Holtzman.
my new favorite girl ever. Yeah. I'm so obsessed with her. I even bought her a little toy.
She's fantastic. She is Tank Girl with a proton pack. Yeah.
Leslie Jones and Kate McKinnon, they proved themselves to be, honestly, my favorite parts of the movie.
They not only changed the genders of the Ghostbusters, but the assistant is played by a
Chris Hemsworth!
Surprisingly, really amazingly funny Chris Hemsworth.
I think that was my favorite part of the movie, was how much fun Chris Hemsworth was having with his role.
It was absurdist comedy, which I'm always a fan of. Like, nobody's ever that stupid as he was, but it was really enjoyable. And to watch Kristen Wiig kind of be her awkward self around him it was enjoying. The longtime friendship and relationship between Wiig and McCarthy, that they go back, they were ghost hunters.
Books. Oh, but I love their book that they had written, The Ghosts of Our Past, both literally and figuratively, a study of the paranormal.
Yes.
Which is an actual book, first of all. And, spoiler alert, Bill Murray's character does not actually die, and if you pick up the actual book that exists, he has written the foreword apologizing to them, saying that if he had believed them, he would have not suffered great bodily harm and exorbitant medical bills.
Yeah, it's fun that there's the possibility that Bill Murray's character, which I love the fact that Bill Murray not only comes back, almost everybody does.
After solidly saying, I'm never going to come back and do another Ghostbusters.
Well, especially, he, to his credit, he wanted the quality to be as high as it should be, and it never got to there. And then once Harold Ramis passed away, he didn't want to have anything to do with the new Ghostbusters movie. Not only does Bill Murray come back, but he comes back as a skeptic.
Yes!
That's hysterical to me. It's, Venkman is now a skeptic. Not that he's Venkman,
but Venkman was a fraud before he saw a ghost.
That's true, yeah.
It was an absolute charlatan.
Yeah, no, he was getting
slapping him in the face.
He was getting the funds from the college, and it's actually kind of neat that they make EVPs seem like a very elusive and difficult thing.
Which they are.
I was gonna say, and that's great because it's not easy to record an EVP. I mean, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I think I've only gotten a true voice that spoke a word once.
Yeah. And it goes even into how we classify EVPs. A Class A EVP, the best EVP that you can get, does not even mean that you can actually understand what the ghost is saying. It just means that you heard the fucking thing very clearly.
Yeah, without any like headphones or anything.
Yeah.
It's just plain as day. It was recorded and you can play it back and hear it with no problem.
Yeah.
So that's the best.
This is the best classification, the best you can hope for.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got to say something about how hard it is to get an EVP.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be an intelligent response, that it's answering a question or anything, just the fact that you can hear it. And so there is a bit of a joke that Melissa McCarthy pulls, and in typical Melissa McCarthy comedy fashion, it's a fart.
Of course it is!
And that's why, again, the casting, I saw Melissa McCarthy, and she's like, she's Miss Lowbrow Humor. I'm not a fan of most of her stuff for that reason.
Yes.
So, again...
It just cracked me up, though, and Kate McKinnon's like, reaction to it, too, and somebody actually falling for the joke.
Yeah.
It's just like a little boy, like...
It's, and she's great, of course. I love the Holtzman character so much because she is a mechanical or electrical engineer.
Yeah, she's brilliant!
And she's really into creating all these devices, which, you look around the internet for ghost hunting equipment, and there are all sorts of crazy things out there created by very passionate engineers that are trying to
decide how these things might work.
Yeah, and you end up usually seeing a handful of things on the ghost hunting TV shows, but there's a lot more that's out there that just isn't on television yet. Yeah. They end up going to investigate this haunted mansion, like this historic haunted mansion.
Which I love, because the first time you see the ghost, the tour guide giving the haunted tour pulls a prank. He's faking the paranormal activity that they experience.
You gotta sell tickets.
And that's something that you come across too as a paranormal. Like all these haunted places that people are claiming are real phenomena, and none of it that you experience there is real. Yeah,
and that's one thing I will say. Some of the critics of the movie, of the current Ghostbusters, they say that this movie is not scary enough. That it's not a true horror comedy the way the original Ghostbusters was. And I do agree with that. This is pretty much the only scary moment, where the first interaction with a ghost, which takes place with Gabe from The Office, it's actually a very scary moment. It would have been nice to see a little more frighteningness throughout.
Yeah.
But still, it's definitely more a comedy than a horror comedy. When the girls go there and they encounter this spirit that is very much based on Lizzie Borden.
Oh, it's super Lizzie Borden-like.
They are... They're fascinated. They can't believe they're experiencing it.
Melissa McCarthy's character, she's like, "You're beautiful."
Yeah,
The only response you could possibly have to this, they're not afraid of it.
And they, after they go out, whereas the original Ghostbusters, they run for their lives out of the library, which is also a realistic reaction. You see these girls outside still recording on their video cameras, and they're just like, "I can't believe we saw one!" They're high-fiving and having... It felt so realistic and natural what their reaction was to it, even though they didn't help the client that they went to at all.
If anything, they might have made it a little worse.
Kind of like in the original Ghostbusters, they'll get to the black person, It's true. Not part of the original 3, but they encounter Leslie Jones, who's working at a Subway, and a Subway station, not the sandwich shop. And she helps them. She walks through where she had a crazy paranormal encounter on the subway tracks.
I love that Leslie Jones, like Ernie Hudson's character in the original Ghostbusters, is like this afterthought of a character. Yeah. And there's always been said that there was a bigger storyline that got cut, and that's...
But then Eddie Murphy didn't take the job, so therefore...
It just got cut out, and that wasn't part of the story. But Leslie Jones, in a lot of ways, she's the heart, she's the reason why the Ghostbusters have all of this information. Well, she knows so much about the history of New York City.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I loved her character so much because she did provide that aspect, that so much paranormal investigation is knowing and understanding and learning the history
You
of
gotta
the
do
place.
your research of the history first before you can even go in and investigate.
Yeah, and they had the science, but they didn't have the history, and here comes Leslie Jones's character Patty to fill that role. And I love the fact that now one of the Ghostbusters was a historian. That was awesome to me.
It was like, 'cause that's what we come from. We come from the
Sure.
history side. We say we're researchers first, investigators second.
The original Ghostbusters, they're just trying to, you know, get down to the bottom of what's going on around this mystical building. Why is there so much spiritual activity here? But in this one, we do have another
We have
flesh
the,
and blood
like-
person who's a bad guy.
Very jaded, out of place, obviously very intelligent man.
He's essentially a homegrown terrorist.
Yeah. The homegrown ecto-terrorist.
Yes.
We're just calling ourselves a new term.
He uses a device that we kind of use, in a sense, called an EM pump. That's what
Yep.
it's used in the ghost hunting world.
He creates a huge one.
Yes, and you know, we don't really know how exactly this works. Like, does it have the blood of an orphan in it? Like, how does it?
I feel like it must.
How is it so negative?
Like, it's part of a Horcrux. You have to kill somebody to make it.
Yeah.
Like, definitely.
I think there's some ritual to it.
Apart.
So, but EM pumps, what is actually used in paranormal investigation, they are these devices that have a lot of energy in them. And they just kind of like allow this energy to be in the air, and the theory behind them is that if there is some entity that's attempting to manifest or do whatever, it's got to pull energy from whatever's around. And so if you're actually supplying it with this energy, it could use that energy to then appear, move something, etc., etc., etc. So the fact that he was creating these things was not that far out of line with what we think is possible.
Ours don't explode though, let me just say.
No.
Like,
there's a sequence in the backstage at a heavy metal concert
with the weirdest Ozzy Osbourne cameo the world has
a really forced and unnecessary Ozzy Osbourne.
Like, somebody like Ozzy Osbourne heard that there was a Ghostbusters remake and he wanted to be in it, and nobody knew how to tell him no.
There are some moments that are very subtle throwbacks to the previous, which I love. One of my favorite moments in the original Ghostbusters movie, they're in the elevator at whatever fancy hotel it was, which we know is the Biltmore in Los Angeles.
Biltmore.
But they're in this elevator and kind of have the realization that, well, we're about to go into this shootout with a nuclear reactor on our back that hasn't been tested.
I love that she like starts off with explaining how she's contained it.
Yeah, well, and then, you know, they turn on the pack and everybody else just gets to the other side of the elevator as if that would help them in a blast. But yeah, so there is a little bit of that when they're in the back alley testing their gear, that they just kind of back up a little bit. I feel like that's
probably a nod. Oh, I didn't like their new PKE meter.
Oh gosh, it was so
like
silly.
It felt like one of those like Disneyland toys that the kids play with.
Yeah, as soon as the sun goes down, these are what the vendors are selling.
It was dumb.
It's like, like the glowing necklaces, but on a centrifuge.
Like, cause everything else, the ghost traps like changed shape. They were circles instead of squares.
A lot of stuff like the packs and whatnot felt much more steampunk.
Yes, but like that toy, it just looks so cheap.
And weird and impractical. I mean, you'd be slapping yourself with it.
Yeah,
And
like I just
spinning
love
around.
the original ones so much.